Hello, my name's Elijah Wells, and today's review is the new film by Josh Cooley, Transformers 1. The movie essentially serves as a backstory to both Optimus Prime and Megatron, who in this movie start off as very close friends to the point they essentially are like brothers, as they are working in the mines of Cybertron, which is their home planet. But, however, after learning some incredibly shady stuff that goes down in Cybertron, as well as the politics around it, and how the workers were severely exploited for that, the fate of the planet and their friendships is severely hampered and changed forever, as they both go through like very different paths of how they're going to have to go around the fate of Cybertron and how they're going to do it. The Transformers film series has definitely had a bit of a checkered past, come to think about it. Even though, yes, it started off in the 80s with Peter Collins' iconic performance as Optimus Prime, which is pretty much defines what we know about Optimus Prime, and has also been Orson Welles' final movie before his unfortunate passing. But there's also got rebooted in 2007 with the director Michael Bay, directing not just one, but 5 installments, each one unfortunately getting more critically lambasted than the last, unfortunately, even though some of them got really big box office receipts, until the last one being Last Night did really bad in box office, with Michael Bay announcing he's just going to have to step back from directing duties from the Transformers series. But however, the franchise kind of limped forward a little bit longer with these spin-off film Bumblebee, which got a lot of decent reception, got some decent reviews, but box office wise it wasn't definitely what Michael Bay initially envisioned. Like, it only made, if I remember correctly, it didn't even make 500 million. Then there was Rise of the Beast, which came out only last year, which again got decent reviews but did a little bit better in the box office, even though I myself has completely got off the Transformers train around Age of Extinction in 2014, given how really awful the movie was and how it just did not work for me at all. Like, even though it was absent from Shia LaBeouf and had the new lead being Mark Wahlberg, the movie unfortunately just sucked all the energy out of it and just gave me no justification to watch any more of that whatsoever. So I just skipped out until now with the new series, with the new film, without Peter Collins, but with Chris Hemsworth as Optimus Prime, and with Michael Bay still as producer in the movie, and with the director of Toy Story 4, Josh Cooley, in the helm. The movie does boast a very impressive ensemble cast, not just with Chris Hemsworth as Optimus Prime, but there's also Megatron, who's voiced by Brian T. Henry, and there's Elita Wong being voiced by Scarlett Johansson, there's Keegan-Michael Key as well, Steve Buscemi, there's Lawrence Fishburne, and there's John Hamm in the movie as well. Like, this is definitely a lot more of a bigger stacked of cast than what we would typically associate Transformers with, but for what it's worth, in my opinion, Transformers 1 is definitely not just a return to form for Transformers, but in my opinion, it pretty much outdoes the Michael Bay movies altogether. Like, even though 2007 film that he did with Shia LaBeouf and Megan Fox wasn't exactly high cinema, but it was definitely a fun time nonetheless. But sequels unfortunately dwarfed out increasingly significantly with each installment, given how not great they were, to the point I just gimped out on the last official one. It was already a bold decision to do some recasting here and there, but it was also bold enough to do it in animation, which is, again, even though I didn't know what it was trying to do per se, but I think if I kind of harken back to 2014, where the also notoriously crap movie being Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles got a reimagining from Michael Bay, which they all look like Shrek if he had plastic surgery to look like Woody Harrelson and was jacked up on steroids, and was, I think it was last year when they got an animated movie, and guess what? It was widely acclaimed by a lot of people, as in, I guess Paramount is also going on that same logic as well, as like, if we do it animated, then it must be good. And it was good, thankfully so. Like, the designs of this movie, particularly of Cybertron, the planet where where the entirety of this movie takes place, and in the city area that's all underground, and the war zone as the surface area, and the cave dwellings, and where a lot of hideouts are, like the animation, like how they incorporate like the extras, and how they It's just a really gorgeous movie to look at, surprisingly. Like, regardless of the setting as well, which is again something I do really appreciate out of animation, and particularly the background art, which is also really a nice story to look at, and particularly in the opening scenes where Optimus Prime escapes from the archives room, or when he and Megatron pretty much hijack a race just to prove that minors are not something to be written off on, which is also that entire scene is really nice to look at as well. Like, I feel like there is like a ton of effort being put into this animation, and it definitely does show to begin with. And the story basically with Cybertron and the really shady business that goes around it, and how all the characters involved react up to it in very different manners, and how they channel their aggressions in really different places from each other, which again is also really interesting. Like how they all noted of how really consequential this was, and how this was all like a big conspiracy, and how this was all like very sophisticatedly covered up, and how they all took their own path around it, which is also something I do find really intriguing about this movie, and how what really separated Optimus Prime and Megatron outside of the usual tenets being a protagonist and antagonist, but what really ticked them off, like what really divulged them from this path, like what made them like separate and go their own ways, which is really interesting in my opinion, and really good in my opinion. Even though I've said plenty about the voice acting in this movie, which is actually really brilliant, but what's something that really does draw to my attention is that Chris Hemsworth did say he wasn't going to do an impression or do any mimicking of Peter Collins when he was the original voice actor for Optimus Prime, as he's just going to do his own thing, which does make some sense, as he also says this version of Optimus Prime, even though he's the more younger, the more naive and less intelligent version of what we know of Optimus Prime, as he's essentially just starting out, like he's essentially still on training wheels in a sense, like given till the end of the movie where he really does go to his full form as Peter Collins, like at the end of the film, like Optimus Prime, in my opinion, just sounds a lot more like Peter Collins than Chris Hemsworth, which is something I found a lot surprising. I'm not sure if this was like an intentional decision made on the director, or this is something that Chris Hemsworth thought, like maybe I could alter my voice a little bit to sound like him, or this was a case that maybe Peter Collins made a cameo in a sense, even though I think if I remember correctly he may have retired or something, but I don't know on top of my head, but I will give him credit at this. Like, I do stand by his decision to not do an impersonation or mimicking Peter Collins' voice throughout the entirety of this movie. Instead presenting Optimus Prime as more naive and more of a doesn't know what he's getting into type of person, essentially, which is something I do definitely want to stand by on. In my opinion, Transformers 1 goes beyond and above a lot of my expectations, to the point it's basically, in my opinion, I don't care how controversial it is, it's probably the best Transformers movie out there, in my opinion. Like, Josh Cooley did demonstrate in Toy Story 4, he's also great not just in the animation field, but he's also great not just here, not just in Toy Story 4, where it's more of a dramatic route in things when it comes to Toy Story, but this time he does prove his worth as an action film director, even in an animation medium as well. Like, the voice acting in this movie, particularly of Chris Hemsworth and Brian T. Henry, are brilliant. The animations, both in designs and of course the action around it, is also incredible. The music as well is also really good in a lot of instances in this movie. I feel like this movie it's basically an easy comer for people that are not too well versed in the series, or people like me who've dropped off the Transformers train at some point of their career. Like, this movie is so good, it may have actually won me over. It may have got me more excited for more Transformers properties coming out in the near future as well. Like, I feel like this, and also the story about the corruption and the political intrigue of Cybertron, and and basically the fall from grace and the deterioration of the relationship of Megatron and Optimus Prime. Even though it does take some dark turns here and there, I feel like this movie does warranted a major round of applause and feel like it does earn some major merits as well as being one of the surprisingly really great movies that went towards more of an animation route, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, after being essentially cannibalized by Michael Bay in 2014. So, for Transformers 1, I'm feeling an 8 out of 10. So, what do you think of Transformers 1? Let me know in the comments below, like this video, subscribe to my channel, follow me on Instagram, Twitter and Letterboxd, and this is Elijah Wells, and bye!